I'll never forget the day I tried to box every single day for a month. It was the craziest decision of my life. As I look back, I realize now that I didn't fully understand what I was getting myself into. But at the time, I thought it would be a great way to get in shape. I mean, who needs gym classes when you can just show up to your local boxing gym every day? The first few days were tough. My hands hurt from punching the bag, and I could barely make it through a full 10 rounds without gasping for air. But something about that exhaustion felt good, like I was pushing myself to new limits. I started taking notes on how my body was changing, what muscles were sore, what nutrients I needed more of. My friends thought I'd lost my mind, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this daily boxing routine was somehow going to transform me into a different person. But it wasn't just about physical changes for me. I also started to notice shifts in my mental state. The rhythm of punching became meditative, almost therapeutic. I found myself thinking less and less about problems at work or personal worries as the days went by. And then there were the people, the trainers at the gym, who took me under their wing, teaching me techniques and offering words of encouragement when I was about to give up. The other boxers who became like a second family, cheering each other on through sweat-drenched sessions. But here's what nobody tells you. Even with all that camaraderie, even with the physical transformations I saw in myself, it wasn't until week 3 that things started to get really tough. My hands were throbbing constantly, and I began to wonder if I was pushing my body too hard. I had a huge fight coming up at work just as I hit this wall, and suddenly every step felt like a marathon. Would I be able to make it through the next few days without burning out completely? And then, on what turned out to be one of the worst days of my month-long challenge, I met a boxer named Tony who had been training for years. He watched me punch for a minute and shook his head. "You're doing this all wrong." His words stung at first, but they also sparked something inside me. What I didn't realize until after that conversation was how Tony's advice would change the entire trajectory of my month, not just physically, but mentally as well. I made adjustments to my form and began to feel like I'd finally hit my stride. But the next day changed everything. Something about the previous day's session had left me feeling utterly drained. And by lunchtime, I was already dreading the gym. Was it just a bad night's sleep? Or something deeper? The rest of that week was a blur. Every step felt like a struggle. Every punch a chore. I was on autopilot at work, wondering how long this exhaustion would last. And yet, as much as I didn't want to admit it, there was still something inside me that refused to give up. It wasn't just about reaching some arbitrary goal. It was about what I learned from Tony, the way every punch and every step had become a tiny act of defiance against my own doubts and fears. It's funny how our brains can trick us into thinking we're tougher than we actually are. But by the time that month was over, something inside me had shifted. Was it the physical transformation, the mental toughness I'd developed, or just the simple fact that I'd pushed myself further than I ever thought possible? I'm still not sure what changed me more, the daily boxing routine or the people and conversations that came with it, but this much is clear. Trying to box every day for a month was one of the craziest, most transformative decisions I've ever made. As the days went by, my body began to adapt in ways I never could have imagined. My arms would ache for hours after each session, but somehow I'd wake up feeling refreshed and ready to go again. The trainers at the gym started calling me the machine. Because of my relentless dedication, I think it was meant as a compliment. But to be honest, it kind of freaked me out. I was pushing myself so hard that even when we were just doing light conditioning drills, I'd still try to squeeze in an extra few rounds or push the intensity to 11. My fellow boxers started to notice too. They'd give me a nod of respect as I came into the ring, like I was some kind of mythical warrior. And yet, with every passing day, I felt myself getting more and more comfortable in my own skin. One of the weirdest side effects, though, was that I started noticing tiny things about myself, little quirks and habits that I'd never paid attention to before. Like how I always tilt my head to the left when I'm concentrating, or how my feet tend to point slightly outward when I walk. It's amazing how much of our lives we can coast through without really paying attention to these kinds of details. But what really got me was when one of the trainers started giving me specialized instruction on hand wraps and footwork. He'd tell me about all the little things he noticed in my form, like how I tend to rotate my hips a fraction too early, or how my hands are ever so slightly off-center on impact. It was like he had an X-ray vision into my very soul, and yet, at the same time, it felt incredibly liberating. For the first time in my life, I realized that I didn't have to be perfect all the time. I could mess up, and it wouldn't kill me. In fact, messing up was kind of fun. like a little secret club only we boxers understood. And so, with each passing day, I started letting go of that need for perfection, embracing the imperfections. Even one night, after what felt like an eternity of grueling training sessions, something miraculous happened. I landed a solid punch to my opponent's jaw without flinching once. It wasn't just the physical triumph that stunned me. It was the feeling of utter calm and clarity that washed over me in that moment, like all my doubts and fears had simply vaporized. And yet, even as I walked out of the gym that night, beaming with pride, a small voice inside me whispered, "But can you keep this up?" As I replayed that moment in my head, I realized it wasn't just about the physical act of punching. It was about the mental release that came with it, like unclenching a fist that had been gripped for months. And what struck me as even more remarkable was how quickly that sense of calm spread to other areas of my life. I found myself approaching daily tasks with a newfound sense of purpose and focus, tackling problems with a clearer head. Of course, this wasn't just a one-time epiphany. It was the culmination of weeks' worth of sweat, tears, and frustration. But in that moment, something clicked into place, like a puzzle piece finally falling into its proper slot. I started to notice small changes too. My posture improved, my mood stabilized, and even my relationships with others began to shift for the better. As the days went by, though, I found myself struggling to replicate that initial magic. It was as if I'd been given a glimpse of something beautiful, only to have it vanish when I tried to grasp it. And yet, every now and then, in the midst of a grueling training session, or a particularly gruff conversation with my trainer, I'd catch a whiff of that same old confidence, like the scent of ozone on a stormy night. I remember walking into the gym one morning, feeling like I was running on fumes, when suddenly our trainer started drilling me on footwork. It wasn't even a particularly difficult combination, but for some reason, it just clicked, and I found myself moving with a fluidity and precision that surprised even me. My heart pounding, my muscles burning, I caught my own reflection in the mirror. A stranger stared back at me, someone who looked capable of anything. And as I turned away from that reflection, something inside me snapped shut like a trap. It was over. The daily grind had worn down my enthusiasm, and I'd burned out. It wasn't just the physical exhaustion that got to me, it was the mental fatigue of constantly being pushed to my limits every single day. I started questioning whether all this pain was worth it, if the small gains I made each week were enough to justify the cost to my body and mind. My family started to notice a change, too. My wife would ask me if everything was okay, sensing that something had shifted inside me. But even as I struggled to keep up with the training, there was still that occasional spark of excitement, that flash of confidence that made me wonder if maybe it wasn't all just about the physical toll after all. But one day, I hit a wall literally. I was in the middle of a particularly grueling session at the gym when my coach yelled out for me to stop and take a break. I stumbled over to the water cooler, feeling like I'd just run through a brick wall. That's when I saw it, my face in the mirror, swollen and puffy from lack of sleep and endless pounding on the bag. It was then that I realized I'd been pushing myself too hard. For too long, my body was screaming at me to stop, but my mind was still trying to convince itself that just one more session would be the turning point. It's funny how you can get so caught up in your own narrative that you don't even notice when things start to unravel. But as I looked around the gym, I saw all these other faces, some with their eyes fixed intently on the mirror, others staring blankly into space, and I wondered if any of them were feeling what I was feeling. Were they too just pretending to be someone else? Someone stronger, faster, more resilient? I ended up walking out of that gym session right there in front of everyone, leaving behind all the trappings of my daily routine. My coach came after me, trying to persuade me to stay and finish the workout, but I was done. I just wanted to go home, take a long hot shower, and forget about it all for a while. When I got back home, my wife asked me if everything was okay again. This time, I couldn't just brush it off with some half-truth or vague explanation. I looked her in the eye and told her what had been going on, how I'd been feeling like I was losing myself in all this training. She listened attentively, nodding along as I spoke, but I could see the concern etched on her face. The next morning, I woke up with a newfound determination not to push myself further, but to redefine what it meant to be in shape, to find a new balance between physical and mental well-being. I started researching alternative forms of exercise, looking for something that wouldn't break me down quite so thoroughly every day. And as I delved deeper into the world of yoga and Pilates, I stumbled upon something even more surprising: a community of people who didn't define themselves by their workouts, but rather by how those workouts made them feel. Now, I'm not saying it's all sunshine and rainbows. There are still days when I feel like quitting, when the pain and exhaustion threaten to overwhelm me. But what I am saying is that I've finally found a glimmer of hope, a way forward that doesn't involve sacrificing everything at the altar of fitness. And as I stand here today, reflecting on the past month's journey, I'm left with one nagging question. Can you really have it all, the body, the mind, and the balance? As I thought about that question, my mind kept wandering back to the early days of my daily boxing routine, when every punch felt like a blow to the gut, both physically and emotionally. The doubts crept in, was this all worth it? Was I just trying to punish myself into shape? Or was there something more to this grueling schedule? But then I remembered the mornings when I woke up feeling lighter, my muscles humming with a quiet energy that stayed with me throughout the day. Those moments were like islands of calm amidst the stormy seas of exhaustion and frustration. And yet, even as they gave me hope, I couldn't shake off the feeling that I was sacrificing something essential along the way: my relationships, my work, my very sense of self. It wasn't until I hit rock bottom, physically and mentally drained to a point where I couldn't face another day at the gym, that I began to see things in a different light.